Today, my talk is intended for the 4th year English specialization students of University of Distance Education. It is focused on English Language Studies 5. Let's start my talk. Anaphora. We have been concerned with a number of types of syntactic rules. We have looked at the nature of phrase structure rules. Then we looked more closely at the relation between rules and sentences, introducing the idea of a lexicon, and distinguishing between observational and descriptive adequacy. Next, we look at a major objection to phrase structure rules, that they mix generalization about constituent order, and saw how this objection can be avoided if phrase structure rules are replaced by separate immediate dominance and linear precedence rules. Moreover, we look at the behavior of reflexives, which seems to suggest that we need certain non-local conditions on trees and highlighted one of the main differences between PNP and PSG. Reflexive and reciprocal pronouns are known as anaphoras. In this chapter, we will look more closely at their behavior. We will also consider what is often known as disjoint reference. We will look at the data first from a PNP standpoint. Then we will consider how they can be accommodated within PSG. In both theories, a number of principles are assumed which are known as binding theory. 1.2 Anaphoras. We have been concerned, among other things, to account for the contrast between the following examples. Hobbes struck himself. Himself struck Hobbes. We showed that we should account for the contrast with the following conditions on reflexives. A reflexive must have a C-commanding antecedent. We define C-command as follows. A note X C-commands a note Y if neither dominates the other, and the first branching note, that is, note with more than one daughter, above X dominates Y. Given this definition of C-command, Hobbes C-command himself in 1, but not in 2. Hence, himself has a C-commanding antecedent in 1, but not in 2. In the notes to Chapter 3, we pointed out that the reciprocal pronoun each other behaves in much the same way as a reflexive. The following examples show this. The boys scratched each other. Each other scratched the boys. If we use the term anaphora to refer to both reflexive and reciprocals, we can account for the contrast between 5 and 6 by reformulating 3 as follows. An anaphora must have a C-commanding antecedent. This is obviously a step forward. It is easy to show, however, that we are a long way from having a satisfactory account of reflexive and reciprocals. The limitations of 7 become apparent as soon as we consider some slightly more complex examples. Consider first the following. Trumper said, Hobbes struck himself. It is fairly clear that himself here can only mean Hobbes and cannot mean trumpet. 7 does not lead us to expect this. Here the first branching note above Hobbes is a lower S, which dominates himself, hence Hobbes C-command himself, and we predict that it is an acceptable antecedent. However, the first branching note above Trumper is a higher S, which also dominates himself. Hence, Trumper C-commands himself, and we predict, contrary to fact, that Eng-2 is an acceptable antecedent. It seems then that we need a more restrictive condition than 7. Reciprocals point to the same conclusion. Consider the following. The girls said, the boys scratched each other. Here, each other can only mean the boys and not the girls. This sentence will have essentially the same structure as 8. Hence, both the boys and the girls will secondment each other. Again then, it seems that 7 is not restrictive enough. Examples like 8 and 10 suggest that an anaphora requires which is not too far away. What we need to do, of course, is to specify what exactly is not too far away. If we use the 10 binding domain for the structure within which an anaphora must have an antecedent, we can revise 7 as follows. An anaphora must have a secondment antecedent within its binding domain. Given this formulation, our task is to say what the binding domain for an anaphora is. Before I do this, I want to reformulate 11. First, I will assume that an anaphora and its antecedent are quantized. That is, that they share index represented by a subscript. Given this assumption, we can introduce the notion A bound defined as follows. A category is A bound if it is quantized with a C commanding category in an A position, subject, object, object of a preposition, or specifier of noun phrase. As can be seen, this definition makes reference to an A position. We will see later that A position contrasts with non-A or A. Position. Given this notion, we might reformulate 11 as follows. An anaphora must be A bound within its binding domain. Notice that this does not say anything new. It is just a slightly different way of saying what we have already said. Let us now consider what the binding domain for an anaphora is. If we consider 8 and 10, it looks as if an anaphora requires an antecedent within the same clause. The following examples seem to point to the same conclusion. Trumpa said, Mary scratched himself. The girls said, the boys scratched each other. Unlike 8 and 10, these examples have no boxable antecedent within the same clause. This seems to be why they are ungrammatical. Consider also the following. Trumpa said himself scratched Hobbs. The girls said each other scratched the boys. In this example, the anaphoras are in subject position. Here, then, we could not have a C commanding antecedent within the same clause. Thus, a variety of evidence suggests that an anaphora requires an antecedent within the same clause. Thus, we might say the following. The binding domain for anaphora is a minimal, as containing the anaphora. Given this definition, the thing correctly predicts that 8 and 10 are unambiguous because they only have a single potential antecedent, and that 14 to 17 are ungrammatical because they have no potential antecedent. Although the definition in 18 works quite well, we can show that it is too restrictive given P&P assumptions. Consider the following. He considered himself to be a genius. He made himself work harder. On P&P assumptions, 90 contains an exceptional clause and 20 contains a small clause. Thus, the reflexive in 90 is in subject position in an exceptional clause, and the reflexive in 20 is in subject position in a small clause. It follows that they are not bound in the minimal S. A reflexive in object position in an exceptional or small clause behave as expected. He considers Mary to have insulted himself. He made Mary watch himself. In both cases, it seems that the reflexive must be bound in the minimal X. Clearly, we must ask why 19 and 20 are grammatical, although 16 and 21 and 22 are ungrammatical. We have a similar situation with reciprocals. Prior to 19 and 20, we have the following. The boys consider each other to be foolish. The boys consider each other foolish. Prior to 21 and 22, we have 25 and 26. The boys considered Hill to have insulted each other. The boys made Mary watch each other. Here, then we must ask why 23 and 24 are grammatical, although 17 and 25 and 26 are ungrammatical. There is, in fact, an important difference between the grammatical and the ungrammatical examples. We noted in chapter as that the subject of an exceptional or small clause is closely associated with the main clause verb. We suggested, in fact, that the main clause verb plays a role in licensing it. We can now be a little more precise about this. An important difference between subjects of exceptional and small clauses and subjects of ordinary finite clauses is illustrated by the following. He consider him, he to be a genius. He consider him, he a genius. He'll consider that he, him is a genius. In 27 and 28, we have the accusative or objective pronoun him and not the nominative pronoun he, whereas in 29, the reverse is the case. We might suggest that the first consider in 27 and 28 license the objective case on the following subject. In contrast, we can suggest that the nominative case in 29 is licensed by the finiteness of the subordinate clause in the same way as the finiteness of the following main clause license the nominative case of the subject. He, him is a genius. We can also suggest that the case of an object is licensed by the preceding verb. It follows that the case of himself in 21 and 22 and if each other in 25 and 26 is licensed by the verb in the subordinate clause. Thus, in the grammatical examples, the case of the Anaphora is licensed by a constituent of the main clause, whereas in the ungrammatical examples, it is licensed by a feature or a constituent of the subordinate clause. Given this difference, it is not surprising that the two sets of sentences should behave differently. One might ask why the main clause verb should license the case of the subject of an exceptional or small clause complement. One answer to this question involves the notion of government and in particular the following assumptions. A transitive verb license objective case on a noun phrase that it confirms. A verb governs both a complement and the subject of an exceptional or small clause complement. Given these assumptions, a transitive verb will license objective case on the subject of an exceptional or small clause for the same reason as it licenses objective case on an object. In both cases, the verb governs the noun phrase. In the most recent work, a rather different approach has been developed, which does not involve the notion of government. We explain the fact that the main clause verb lies in the case of the subject of an exceptional or small clause. It is clear that our characterization of binding domain must be revised in a framework in which this fact is a consequence of the fact that the subject of such clause is governed by the preceding verb. One might revise the characterization to include a reference to government. This is what we find in much P&P work. As we have noted, however, this approach has been abandoned. In view of this, we simply revise the characterization as follows. The binding domain for an anaphora is a minimal, that is lowest, as containing the anaphora or, in the case of an anaphora, in subject position, in an exceptional or small clause, the minima as containing the associated verb. This is a characterization that might be improved in various ways, but we will leave it as it is. 1.3 Pronominals and R expressions. In this section, we will look at some important aspects of the interpretation of ordinary non-reflexive pronouns like he and non-pronominal noun phrase like he or the king of France. We will refer to former as pronominals and to the later as referring expression. We can look first at pronominals. Consider here the following example. Hobbes struck him. Trumper said, Hobbes struck him. A moment reflection will reveal that him in this example cannot mean Hobbes. A common way of putting this is to say that him and Hobbes are disjoint in reference. Consider now the following. He considered him to be a genius. Hill made him work harder. Again, him and Hill are disjoint in reference. 34, 37 are earlier examples, with him substituted for himself. 34 and 35 correspond to 1 and 8, and 36 and 37 correspond to 19 and 20. They suggest that whereas an anaphora requires an antecedent which is not too far away, a pronominal cannot have an antecedent which is too close. Of course, we need to be more precise than this. To be more precise, we can first define the notion A-free as follows. A category is A-free if it is not quantized with a circumventing category. In an A position, it should be apparent that A-free essentially means not a bound like that. Given this notion, we can formulate the following condition on pronominals. A pronominal must be A-free in its binding domain. This is just like the thing except that it is A-free instead of A-bound. If we assume that the binding domain for a pronominal is the same as the binding domain for an anaphora, this will give the correct result in 34 to 37. In 34 and 35, the binding domain for him is a minimal s containing him. Hence, him cannot have an antecedent in 34 and cannot have an antecedent in the subordinate clause in 35. In 36, him is in subject position in an exceptional clause, and in 37, it is in subject position in a small clause. Hence, the binding domains for him is the may as in both, and consequently, it cannot have an antecedent within the sentence. I will end my talk here. I hope you have some ideas how to study Anaphora. Please don't forget to study your text and guide thoroughly. Good luck.